start the Water Sewer Commission meeting of April 24th, 2019, Norton, Massachusetts. First on the agenda, which I don't have a copy of, I'll go right to Superintendent's report.
We'll start off with the first thing. This is different from what we were just discussing, but we'll get to that by the end of this report. This is a bill for utility charges to the town hall, which has been post-dated numerous times. You would ask to have a new bill submitted with the March date on it. Still not paid, still no response from town hall for that. So, folks wanted me to make sure that you are aware of that number still.
Thank you.
And what action should we follow up with?
Well, this has been bouncing around for quite a long time, and I was told to reissue or rebill, and I'm not sure how it's been overlooked this long, but it'd be interesting for the viewing public to understand how the town works or doesn't work. This some $10,000 odd went into the general fund, and for various reasons, water department is due $10,000 odd from the municipal fund, which has not been paid, and we're going to have to talk to Mike Units and the selectmen, and maybe they'll get to the bottom of it. But if I'm not sure. Maybe we tie it into some of the money they get for overseeing us. This could be seen as our indirect costs, and their lack of attention to this matter shows their lack of attention to our cause.
This is the SBA money?
Yeah, it's going on 2 years. Unacceptable comes to mind.
And it was rebuilt? Or
It was rebuilt in March. I was told to rebuild it. And here we are. Feels like the end of April.
I mean, not that I know that much about this municipal finance piece, but if it ends up turning into a past bill or an old bill, then it becomes potentially more difficult to town meeting.
Yeah.
That's why we
Well,
rebuild it though, so that it
Yeah,
would get back to
I'm not
county
sure
again.
about any of it. I was told to rebuild it, and here we are. And it's just hasn't been denied.
And it could be an offset on the indirect costs,
Right.
and done that easily.
I'll reach back out to Mike,
That would be good.
and see what his thoughts are on how to get that taken care of.
Well, specifically, I would say that if it's not, I will ask this in the form of a motion, but if it's not, this one's 3/18 of 2019. If we don't have a solution and a check to follow by May 15th, 2019, we will take steps to just deduct it from our indirect costs, because it's this lack of attention to this very pressing matter is unacceptable.
So moved.
Without Commissioner Bishop, I will second it and say all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. So the action item will be to present this to Mr. Eunice, and as the motion says, by May 15th, action and or a check. Would be great.
We have a letter directed to the chairman, Luke. This is for the recommendation for night work on 123 to go along with the many other letters that we have slowly been getting in. I think I've
Well,
been,
that's one from the select board? or-
no, the select.
Nicole,
Yeah.
Mass DOT, she was one of the
Yeah.
folks
Right.
from the Mass
So
DOT.
that letter's to her, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this will be to her from the board,
Oh, okay, good.
recommending
Oh,
the
this
night
is-
work from this board.
From our end, okay, good.
Yeah, so just as background, quick on that, we've been getting, we've got several letters of support already. When we met last time, we had already received from the schools, from the housing authority, and from the fire department. And these are the letters to support night construction on Route 123, which Mass DOT is looking for the town to back up the fact that that work's gonna be done at night. And since then, we've received a letter from the select board, and now this one here.
Yep, just for the folks viewing at home, I'll read the letter from our water sewer department to the Mass DOT regarding the night work for the project on Route 123, a sewer project on West Main Street from basically Wheaton College to the Housing Authority property. As discussed at March 21st, 2019 meeting regarding Mass DOT permit app ends in 490. The purpose of this letter is to express support from the Norton Board of Water Sewer Commissioners for the nighttime construction of the West Main Street Sewer Extension Project within the West Main Street and Taunton Ave construction corridors. Consensus of the stakeholders present at the March 21st, 2019 meeting was that night work would provide the least amount of disruption to this area during construction and allow for the selected contractor to perform the work most efficiently. Construction of the proposed project during the day will result in significant disruptions along Route 123 and 140. Also raises concern for access to and from schools, businesses within the project area. For the reasons herein described, our board, the Norton Water Sewer Commission, supports night work during construction of the West Main Street Sewer Extension Project within the highway layout. Is this for me?
That is for you to sign if you could.
Okay. I think that's I think it's a necessary, it's not even an option. I mean, you all looked at this.
Yep, yeah, it was discussed at length at that meeting with all the town departments.
Okay.
And everyone was on board that it's the only way to get the project done.
And then another letter came in, we saw it today, from Representative Steve Howitt.
All right.
Also wrote a letter
Super.
of support,
Correct.
which is obviously a good thing.
Right. Right. You know, I'm sure it will disrupt a few residences along the route, but we should all remember that it will improve the overall access to sewer along that corridor, and they will move, what are they supposed to be, 150 feet a day maybe? So although they're,
It'll depend
Yeah,
on how deep
the
they
deeper
are
part
and
is bad, slower.
The digging conditions, the
But-
rock and stuff.
the noise will be spread out, how about that? As they progress, the noise will move away from each property.
It's a linear project, so they just move a little bit further each night. You know, and the other thing about the day work is the restrictions on the schedule. So if it's done during the day, not only is it very disruptive to traffic, you can't start before all the buses are done.
Right, now it's,
And you can't continue to work when it's time for the buses to head home. So really, it's a window of maybe 9 in the morning till 1:30.
right,
And doing that every day, you're not gonna get anywhere. So
Right.
at least at night, they can get, a chunk of 8 or 9 hours of time to make progress. 'Cause, it's not just, it's exponential, the extra hours each day that you get is, once they open up the hole and can have production. So that's one of the biggest things.
So I'll ask the question for Steve, is we expecting to see a permit with this being allowed written in by Mass DOT, or is this something that they will leave up to the town?
Ultimately, Mass DOT has to issue the permit. They are the final authority on the conditions of the work. And so, we have met with them several times, as recently as last week. And we're trying to move the permit along. So hopefully we will have that soon. And I'm anxious to see what the time, shall I say, restrictions or allowances are, depending on whether you're half empty or half full. Looking at it,
contact with a company called Next Sun Energy. They are actually the company that was looking to do the work in the Cranberry Bogs
Bay
down
Road.
off of Bay Road.
Yes.
They called asking some sensitive information. We felt around what they were asking and answered it accordingly without giving out too much pertinent information. They were still doing research on putting in the piles if that project does go through the courts and move forward. The piles that they're looking to put in to support the weight of those solar panels are about 15 feet below grade. They were interested in the hydrological study for the area for the impervious layer. It's kind of a sensitive subject. If you break through that layer and now you have herbicides and stuff in the cranberry bogs, you could have a direct access to your aquifer with these chemicals that normally would be filtered or not allowed to pass through the permeable layer. I've passed this off to Derek. He's spoken in depth with these people. We did not give them any information on what we have for maps or anything to show any of that because of the sensitive nature of the project, and they do know it will affect wells in the area by doing this and breaking through that layer.
Well, what depth is the layer at? Is the question, I guess, that's most important. Are they gonna break through it, or are they?
There would have to be test bores that would have to be done because it would change. It's not in an area that we have any prior knowledge of.
Right.
We would have that information directly around our well sites, which is what we basically explained to this gentleman. We could, provide him with a basic idea of what that is, but it could drastically change on the other side of the river or a mile down the road. There's no way of knowing without doing some exploratory work first.
We requested in our Concom meeting that they have that data before, but even getting that data is invasive as well. So you kind of
Exactly,
you're
yeah.
drilling holes to find out what the profile of the soil is, and
Now
you
you
go
have
right through,
void.
and now you.
Right, exactly.
So, but it's better to do it
Can
once
you
than.
gunite with pressure or something and kind of seal the hole, or there's no?
No, they have ways of doing that.
You
Like
know what
when
I
they,
mean?
when they do horizontal drilling, like under rivers and stuff, they
Right.
have ways of buffering it so that it doesn't break through
Right.
above. But yeah,
Okay.
they can do something like that.
Close it up on the way out kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Right. It's a big concern, especially with the
Oh,
water.
it's huge. No, it's,
And,
it's
this-
beyond huge.
It may not direct us, immediately directly impact us with the source locations of our wells, but a lot of wells on Plain Street, would be directly affected
As,
by
as,
that.
as we all know, the funny little insignias on, I think it's the MWRA catch basins, all water's connected.
You are correct.
Okay, let's all just look at what we're doing here.
Right.
I don't like the fact
It's dangerous.
that bog feeds directly downstream, and the fertilizers and whatnot go into the Lake Winnicott and whatnot, and feed the algae and all the
That's why you have the
plants
blooms.
that we're trying, right, that
so
we're
paying
trying to get rid of.
that we're
Yeah.
that we have a huge
Yeah.
dollar amount to
Correct.
mitigate, and so on and on and on. The water is the water.
Right.
That's why we're here.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you're right. The area that they are in is, in geologic terms, not close enough to our wells to share our information with them,
Mhm.
and the soils will vary one way or the other. We don't know, and I guess we don't. I don't know how to proceed without town council's recommendation on if we can prohibit them from doing more than one or two. But I guess that would be a question for town council. How do we proceed in limiting the preliminary geo exploration into the impermeable layer, with special attention to the impact on our nearby wells?
Have they sampled groundwater already in the area to see what kind of condition, what you already have?
Honestly,
As far
I
as
don't know
groundwater?
what phase that they're in. I know that that was
Haven't
shut
yet.
down. I don't know if they're still
We
looking.
haven't done any
to argue.
geotech work yet.
Okay.
For at least as of 2 weeks ago, we haven't. So they said they were gonna wait till after they get the permit, and we said no, we want that data before we give you the permit, because we don't want them driving in I don't know how many hundred piles.
It would
without
be a
knowing.
lot, it would be a lot of support.
Hundred.
Under that,
Really?
Hundreds.
Oh, more than 100, yeah.
It's I forget how many 100 panels, and each one is 10 feet off the ground and requires 4 piles to support it. So yeah, you have over 200 or 300.
Wow.
So
I mean, there's other concerns involved, even with just the solar project being above the bogs there as far as runoff and stuff goes. I mean, just the material that the solar panels are made out of, what happens when those panels start to break down, anything that could leach from the panels, the cabling, everything that's involved is not just limited to the piers breaking through the permeable layer, or even
Right,
just
no,
setting
it's
in
a food environment.
Right.
Right.
There's a lot involved with that. That's a pretty sensitive area.
So did you say there's some litigation, or has been?
Last I knew, they were held off, and now they have to determine if they want to go back before the courts to argue.
yeah, they would deny the planning board. It's still coming before us though. We have to issue a ruling for that part. 'Cause if they had the option to appeal
Okay.
the planning board decision, so our decision will be separate from that. So still very much up in the air.
I finally received, actually just today, the cost estimate for the water main improvements for the 123 project with VHB. I reached back out to Jamie because I was surprised at what that number was, and I was concerned that it did not include labor. He assures me that it is everything, labor and parts. It's about half of what the estimate was originally from Weston and Sampson, which
This is about $500,000.
yeah, which is incredible.
It's under, it's
430.
This is 430,000.
Then maybe what
The
you suggest that you
township?
do is you pay that bill, pay it based on that?
Well, it has to go out to bid.
We'll take it.
The bid won't happen until after July.
That's-
So-
No, no,
Itemized,
seriously,
though,
so-
if, depending on how they're gonna put the bid form together,
Mhm.
right, unless you have separate articles that are non-participatory
Mhm.
by the state money, and do it separately,
Mhm.
and then have all those items bid separately and come up with a number,
Mhm.
that if
Pay
it
that
ends
as
up
a
being,
whole.
yeah, if it ends up being significantly more than that,
Mhm.
then what do you do?
Right.
Whereas they could say, well, if you're gonna just do it, and there's a dollar amount that they're looking to get from the town, why not? So you're gonna go to bid,
Right.
and they can just put it as part of the job, and so they don't have to throw it separately. Said,
Right.
we'll take it,
Right,
we'll do it for that amount of money.
right.
I mean, it seems a little contrived, but
If that's,
from the standpoint of the town's.
no, if that's what they value it
It's
at,
unit price though. So unless the units are way off what they need, I mean, they're gonna be paying on those units, so. If they ask for a lump sum price and they give us 430, and then we make them stick with that, but if the units double, then the total dollar amount will double.
I mean, like we propose to do with the sewer project is, obviously bids go out prior to town meeting, so we have an actual number.
Right.
So this number could vary when it goes out to bid. I don't know if we could ask them to hold true to that number without knowing what a contract is gonna come back at.
Mhm.
It would be great. Usually estimates are higher than the actual amount.
Right.
That is a pretty good number, the way it sits for the amount of work that's gonna be done there. If it comes back even less, that's even better.
What's the schedule?
well, that's a pleasant surprise, Frank. We don't often get,
Exactly, I was surprised
The
when I saw that
downside
number.
surprise.
You're correct.
hey, we'll see.
I don't believe there is a set schedule for that.
So they don't know
yet.
when it's gonna go to bid yet?
I have not heard. I'd have to dig back through some emails and see, but
Right.
I was very surprised to actually get a letter. I've reached out probably weekly to Jamie to ask him about how things are moving forward. And this is the first progress I've seen with that, so.
This is a job that's not gonna be done this construction season, it's next construction season, right?
That's correct.
Like I said, if there's a way to
Right, lock that number in.
maybe lock
That'd
it
be
in,
incredible.
based on what we think the cost really would be,
Mhm.
if the state's willing to
So
pick up.
that's specifically the items that they've determined that the town is responsible for paying for,
Correct.
right? Because are there items that, there's stuff that needs to get done that is part of the project, right? Cost of the
That is
overall
correct.
project,
Yeah,
not
there
the
is
town's
some-
responsibility because they're in your road.
Right, there are some relocation areas, they have to move the main.
They have to move for their convenience
Exactly, yeah.
versus you requesting or the town saying,
Mhm.
well, if you're gonna dig up the road, we need this done.
We need this done, yeah.
And the other thing, I believe that when Tara put the number for us,
Mhm.
together for us, there was some paving costs included in that.
Correct.
I don't see any paving costs here at all.
I don't, I see just a concrete cost
Yeah.
on the bottom.
That's
So
small.
that's probably a substantial savings.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
huge. If they don't
Paving.
expect the town to pay, that's.
Well,
that's
they
a
were
really
paving
good
the
thing.
I was gonna say,
They're
if
gonna do it
their
anyway.
goal is to pave, then isn't the paving just the paving?
Except that you got your own trench and you gotta put things back in the trench. And there's no other costs in there for even like CDF or whatever. And the shallow trench, water main trench that would typically be required.
Right.
That's not there. At least I didn't see it.
Don't believe it was there.
So if this is really, these items could be locked in, but that's what in fact, what's the asterisk mean, do you know? There's an asterisk on some of these items?
Honestly, I do not.
So notes on the bottom.
No.
No notes, no. Because sometimes there's things you would share in,
Right.
and then there's no other costs that we would be sharing in. So this is, personally, I think this is a wonderful deal for the town. If we can strike it.
Yeah, I'll reach back out and find out what the asterisks are actually there for.
Okay.
And a couple of follow-up questions would be good
Yeah.
if you can.
Can you scan it and or send that to us tomorrow?
I will do that.
Okay. And they talked about how the contract would be arranged between the town and the contractor, or the town and the state? So would the state have a contract with the town for this
That-
exchange of funds?
Nothing of that has been discussed.
Okay. I'm just thinking as far as how you award it, the money's coming from two different pots.
Sure. No,
Pockets, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work. But they call them non-participating items, meaning almost like, here's all the work we did for the road, and here's the non-participating items, that they would actually bid it that way.
Okay.
That's what it looks like anyway.
It's just like when you break it up for funding, you know, eligible and ineligible.
Correct.
Items, stuff that's covered under the grant, stuff that's not covered under.
And it could differ wildly depending on who the bidders are. So some may take in paving,
Sure.
water main, or
Yep. Right.
the bottom line is still the bottom line.
Right.
Depends on how they
Break it up.
break it up.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas if you could avoid all that discussion and pay a number,
Oh, it's huge.
Sure.
right? Not a lot of back and forth, and you know what to expect, you know what the bill's gonna be. Do it tomorrow.
Yes. Sign
I'm
it.
okay. All right, Fran.
I had submitted an article for a placeholder for the June 3rd special town meeting warrant to appropriate money for phase 1 and phase 2 of an investigation done at wells 5 and 6 based on the loss of the capacity we've had over many years. The ballpark number on this comes up just around $100,000 for phase 1 and phase 2 of a larger portion, if we are able to move forward with reproduction or relocation of these wells. Weston and Sampson drew up a letter for the article. I submitted that to Mike Units. After having some correspondence with Mike, he feels the small amount, 95 to 100,000, is able to be taken out of retained earnings at the water department to pay for phase 1 and phase 2 and remove the article from the town meeting. Had some discussion back and forth with email, and basically has come down to he had given us the option that he or they, which was the best way to put it, could input that into the fiscal year 19 budget, or we could amend our fiscal year 20 budget to encompass that 100,000 for stage 1 and stage 2. I requested that because of the severity of the problems we've had, and it's been put off for so long, that if he is capable of amending the fiscal year 19 budget, that we put that in and start working on that immediately. And he feels that that is fine. We can pay for that out of our retained earnings, or we actually have a line item that we have for in-house water main improvements. He said we can utilize the money from that. There's money in there to cover this 100,000 out of that line item. I requested an answer if we have to go before the finance committee or the capital committee to have this approval. His answer was no, we do not. He will sign the purchase order and contract for this project to move forward.
Sounds simple enough.
What's the timeline, you think, to do the whole drilling program? Will it be done by June 30th?
Done by June 30th?
Doesn't it have to be done by the end of this fiscal
The
year?
project would have to be started
Oh, it only
prior
has to be
to.
started, okay.
Right.
That's fine then.
We would have the purchase order in place. Obviously, the money would probably have to be transferred
And then encumber.
and encumbered,
Right. Okay.
but it would get us moving in the right direction
Definitely.
quickly.
I think the faster the better.
You know, that way we're on a better track to know exactly what avenue we have to take with those two larger wells. Hopefully, there's not limitations that are there for excavation and exploration because of the treatment plant. With the limitations we'll put on the properties there are surrounding the treatment plant for potential concern areas. We would have to look at the maps, and Barbara, I can reach out to her and find out where that was moved to. There was some drawings that were presented at one of the meetings prior that showed the areas that could not be impacted, and I believe it did come close to 5. So we may be limited where we can look for a replacement well there. But again, it's moving in the right direction. It's something that should have been done many years ago. It's great that Mike's on board and is willing to sign the purchase order and go forward with that on the contract, and we would definitely get started on that as soon as possible. We just want to have the
Right.
board's blessing on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's.
I know you guys are behind us 100% and
Absolutely.
know what needs
Sooner
to be
the better.
done.
No, it's a proactive move. Like you said, a little, even if it is a little too late, it's long overdue, and we'll
Right, we'll have some
anxious
answers.
to see the results.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, it'd be great if after the cleanings, they come back substantial, and we can really spend some time, you know, fine tuning where these need to go. You know, the concern there is that they don't come back to a satisfactory amount, and, you know, now we at least have the answers to say, all right, well, we can abandon that one, we can move to this location. Possibly look at some larger screens to put in, because now that water is gonna be treated, you don't have to have such a fine screen to limit your yield. There's definitely positives that'll come from it.
Right.
So,
That's good news.
it is. Just a quick letter that came in from 306 and 308 East Main Street, which is the Bernie and Phil's warehouse extension project there. Just because we have property, we are notified as abutters that they will be doing some work in the BVW. That's your wonderful abbreviation.
Bordering vegetated wetland.
Exactly. Within the area where our parcel of land meets theirs. That was just a notification I just had.
Expanding the building?
They are.
Yeah.
Just a general update, we've actually started moving forward with safety training as a department. Many of us have our OSHA 10. This is a renewal year. As of December 31st, everybody has to renew their water distribution and treatment licenses. So you have to have your continuing education credits in. We've moved up. We've had 8 of us sign up for the OSHA 30, which is more of a management type training course, but there's definitely some added benefits to having the 30-hour over the 10. We're doing in-house training here, so we've been doing that all week. We have a few of the other gentlemen that we obviously had to keep in the field. We will be switching those people to the next round of classes that are available. Most likely that's going to be in Mansfield. And we have a few seats that we're going to have held for us specifically so we can get everybody up to speed on the training and have all their contact hours in. But, and that's all I have for tonight.
Good work.
It wasn't too bad.
I think we'll move over to Weston Saint.
Sure.
You wanna go first?
Yeah, I'll do the sewer update. So I gave a pretty detailed update at the last meeting.
Do you recognize this friend? I don't know whether that's to go to you guys or, I mean, I think we signed it all.
Smooth the one. Yeah, it goes, sewer reimbursement stuff for the state.
Okay,
It says- That's
That's
what's
right.
going.
good.
There you go. So since the last meeting, where we discussed moving forward with advertising the project and getting some bids in hand before town meeting, we actually had a few meetings. We came in here, met with Howard and Frank, went over the design. Got some good input from Howard, some things that he likes, some things that he doesn't like. So we've incorporated all of that into the final design. We also met with Wheaton College. They're very excited, anxious for the work to happen. They're more excited for the final product to have a better road out there because that other half of Fillmore is definitely in disrepair and the disruption to campus while we're doing the work will obviously be challenging for everybody. And then we also met with Mass DOT and continue to meet with them and try and help them keep moving this permit along. We talked earlier, you've got the letter, so that you've got another letter of support for the night construction, which is something that Mass DOT is looking for, as much support as we can get, so they can move forward with the permit for night work. So we did advertise the job. The advertisement appeared last Wednesday, the 17th. Plans and specs were available last week. As part of the advertisement process, Fran was talking earlier, Rose helped us out a lot with helping the town out getting the Combis ad posted. So we've advertised in the Central Register, the Sun Chronicle, and another requirement for municipalities is that they advertise in Combis. So all the advertisements are taken care of. There is a pre-bid meeting this Friday at Town Hall. Frank, you would reserve that room, made arrangements to reserve the room. So 10 a.m. on Friday, an opportunity for contractors to come in. You know, based on the nature of this work, the anticipated night construction, there's some definite specifics about sequencing of operations and how the project's going to get built. So just an opportunity to talk to the prospective bidders about it, and that will, you know, whatever gets discussed on Friday will become part of the addendum. So there will be an addendum going out next Friday to the bid documents that encompasses several things. The bid opening itself is scheduled for May 9th, so 2 weeks from tomorrow, right? Thursday, May 9th. And then as we discussed at the last meeting, so the town meeting is May 15th. We have reserved an article based on how the dollars come in on the bids. If we need additional funding, and we talked about the next commission meeting, Monday, May 13th, having an opportunity to talk to some of the other boards, you know, specifically the select board and maybe members of the finance committee, about where we're at and what we're looking for at the town meeting. It's actually part of the special town meeting on the 15th. So in terms of costs, you know, we've been talking about how, you know, costs are trending and some of the permit requirements and different conditions out there are definitely driving the costs. So it'll be nice to have a real number. We certainly, you know, based on everything we're seeing, I definitely anticipate that you know, more money is going to be needed. You know, we're seeing bid prices right now are coming in higher than they have in a while, at least on this type of construction work. You know, we're seeing things coming in over the estimates. Another thing, based on the nature of the work out there, we have to rework our estimate for the police. There's probably going to be some significant costs for police, as well as oversight of the construction out there. You know, so I think the biggest thing going into town meeting, we'll have the biggest chunk in terms of the actual bid prices, but we also have to make sure we have the right contingencies in place, because everything is based on production in the end, and we have to, you know, be prepared if production, you know, slows down to a crawl, that we have the money to finish the job. So a
Do you
big
think
part of
that,
going.
sorry to
Yep.
interrupt. Do you
Yeah.
think that the uptick for night work will cancel out the lessening for the reduced time for the overall job? Or will it be able to say anything, or will it be
I think cost-wise, it's probably end up being a wash.
okay? That's what I figured.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the time, you're saving on the time.
Right.
And really the overall safety and just constructability.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a premium for night work.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so there's a premium for the
But
night
with
work, but
cutting the job down by a third or more, then
hopefully,
you're gonna
yeah.
have less days.
Exactly, but the time that you're actually gonna be able to work
Yeah,
is the big difference.
Yeah.
Everybody knows, I mean, it takes an hour and a half to get going, and if you start at, you know, 8:30, 8:45, and you burn an hour in the morning getting going, and it takes an hour to close up, especially, I think I'm under the impression that we have to pave the trench that's opened every
Every
single
day.
day.
That's what,
Yep.
that's part of the.
So if you,
task
if you've got that, I mean, is it a 3-hour work window? Is that what we're?
That's what you're down to.
If I'm,
during the day.
if my, not even envelope math, if my one hand math, it serves me correctly, it's 3 or 4 working hours.
Yeah.
You can't
One
put a lot of
stick on the
pipe,
ground and that's it.
Yeah.
and
Yep.
some of it's deep-ish
Yep.
in
Yeah,
hard,
certain
in hard
places.
ground, so I
Yep.
think the upcharge for the night
Yeah, I think it's definitely.
is the way to go, and the downside of the small window during the day is it prolongs the pain. So you've got details out there, if you're really looking at the police and all this other stuff, you've got details out there for, like you said, a much longer period of time, day to day.
Yep.
Whereas if you can get that, we talked with Mass DOT at that March meeting, about possibly nudging a half hour in the beginning and a half hour at the end of the night work, so you could possibly do some, you know, some real long nights, as it were.
Yep. So, we'll see how it comes out in that respect. The easement process continues to move forward. I think we're close to having the paperwork filed for both the work at Wheaton as well as on the Housing Authority. And we're working with Joe Cove, as he works with Attorney Mnuchin, who
Dave.
represents both Wheaton and the Housing Authority. So with that, the thing, we're wrapping up the design, and we have moved into the construction services portion. So I did bring tonight copies of an agreement for construction services, which is the next thing we're gonna move into. That includes the bidding phase and construction oversight. And I know I just emailed that out today, so no one's really had a chance to look at it, but it's our standard, you know, construction services agreement. It's all based on, you know, the biggest chunk of it is having somebody out there watching the work, and it's all based on production assumption and hours of resident rep time.
And
But it does include, go ahead.
for this, you guys include an as-built, or who does the contractor does an as-built, or you
No, we
guys
do it.
produce the as-built?
Yep, yeah, we take the design
Excellent.
drawings, the CAD
Excellent.
drawings we have, and create an as-built. So yeah, we track, you know, records of where everything goes
Super.
during a
And so is their oversight the only work that goes on, or do we have a guy stopping by with the physical, looking at the sewer pipes going together and?
Normally, we'd have somebody, I can't guarantee they're gonna be on site 24, but they'll definitely be in and out of the project.
Right, okay, even
Yeah,
if
it's
it's
usually
night,
Working
pop-ins,
closely.
you know.
We've always worked closely with the engineers that are on site.
okay. because in the past I've heard we don't have any as-built on that project, and obviously we want to make sure going forward that
Oh,
that
yeah.
is.
Yep.
I don't see it as duplication. Don't get me wrong. I see it as a critical part. You guys have the linear concept of what's going on, but it's invaluable to have a guy on the site who's going to be here after the job is done, using the manholes, seeing where the laterals are,
Yeah.
how that's all,
Yeah. And we actually.
with a riser or whatnot on each property, or however your standard is to do it, to assure that it's actually being done, and how it gets connected when
Yeah.
18 different contractors go to hook up a few different
Sure.
properties. So both sides would
And
be.
we talked with, so Howard had some questions on
Sure.
that when we met last week about the record drawings for the town center. He had a couple of questions, and we were able to show him where everything is shown, you know. So we provide as-bills that have, you know, where all the service stubs are left with swing ties to the end of it, to the end of the connection, and we provide a book that has all the ties to each, you know, house by house and on the record drawings.
Right.
And
So
one thing he
almost a
talked
field-
about
almost
is,
a field card
yeah,
for a
and
property.
we're also gonna do GPS location too, for
Yeah.
these, because that's really the easiest, you know,
Oh, that's the way to go.
that's the most solid information you'll have on where things are.
Excellent.
So, yeah, but we did, he had several questions about that, so, about how we do that. So,
And people along the way are gonna wanna know if, so in the gravity portion, I assume there will be laterals to each property?
yep,
And maybe even in the pressure portion, are there gonna be laterals, and how, is it accessible or not accessible?
Nothing to the pressure.
No pressure tie-ins?
so everybody that's getting fronted is getting fronted by gravity.
Okay,
Sewer. We do have questionnaires that we send out as part of our scope here, is to send out questionnaires to the homeowners to help us determine where on the property we're gonna leave the stub.
right,
You know, so we bring the main line down the street, they drop a Y branch in the main line sewer where the connection's gonna go, and then the contractor has a smaller machine that comes back and then
Sure.
extends from the Y branch outside of the limits of the highway, in this case, you know, the state highway, to the property line. One thing I will say here is, in our discussions with Mass DOT and some of their concerns being, you know, one of our concerns being, are we gonna have to mill and overlay the whole road, or can we just do the one lane of traffic?
right.
And we're maintaining our longitudinal construction to one side or the other, which also allows, you know, one lane of alternating traffic to get by at all times. But then when we do all the laterals, there was some discussion of, you know, even though you're staying to one side, when you do the laterals, we're gonna need you to end up doing a full width, because we don't wanna have all these bumps along the way. So, or all these cross cuts, you know. And one thing that we are looking at is trying to double up at property lines with the longer crossings,
Gotcha.
to bring two together in one trench, and then it's a couple 100 feet to the next one instead of every
Right,
50 feet.
right.
You know, you got two here, and then a couple 100 feet up, you got two there.
Yeah,
Where we can do that,
excellent.
you know, so that limits a little bit, in some cases, the flexibility of where we can leave the stub,
Right,
but, you know, wherever it's left, we'll still provide access
sure.
to the connection from the property.
Right.
So that's all part of it.
It also saves on cost. One trench, two pipes,
Oh, yeah, no, huge.
especially
Yeah.
That's excellent,
getting
excellent,
across the street.
excellent planning.
Yeah, so we'll do that as much as possible to,
And I mean, it makes sense for the project costs, and it doesn't hopefully impact the residents too much, because digging in the grass is not like digging in a state highway. So if you're combining stuff to make the highway work minimized, 10 more feet or 20 more feet of pipe on a resident's yard is
Yep.
not that painful.
so we should be good. So that's all part of this scope here. The construction services agreement, which starts with the bidding through construction oversight, as well as the record drawings you talked about, pump station O&M manuals, startup, and all of that stuff. This is all eligible under the SRF loan. So this gets included for reimbursement with the 2% SRF loan, which actually ends up being a little less than 2% because we've got the principal
Some
forgiveness.
principal forgiveness.
You qualify for some, principal forgiveness on the project. So,
2 to 3% of the job, roughly, is what we've been told.
That's great.
every bit helps.
Just takes it off the top.
Absolutely.
Takes it off the top,
Yep.
you know,
A little
somewhere,
less you have to pay back.
yeah, 150,000 maybe. Off the
Beautiful.
top. Which is good. Like I said, every little bit helps.
So I've brought copies of the agreement. If you want to discuss it anymore, if you want to, however you guys want to go from here with it. So that's 3 copies of the construction services. Again, the scope is basically the same as the last couple, pretty much identical to the town center.
Right, so we've seen this before.
Yeah, in terms of the services that we provide. And really, it just comes down to the assumptions for production. We've got 365 days for the contractor to do the work from the day we issue the notice to proceed, and that's inclusive of final paving. The intent is that they'll
Right.
get all the sewers in, the pump station, and do all the final paving within a year. And, there's certain assumptions for resident rep services. That's the biggest moving target, is, we can only make assumptions on the production and do our best to have that covered. So, that's,
And the one unique scope item is the fiscal sustainability
yep,
plan.
that's right, we talked about that at the last meeting. A new requirement, fairly new requirement of the SRF since the last time we went for funding is they require you to have a fiscal sustainability plan before you close out the SRF loan. We talked about this at the last meeting. It's
Cool.
really it's like an asset management plan. It's an inventory of your wastewater assets.
Okay,
It's DEP
right.
basically saying, okay, we're gonna, give you a low interest loan to do all of this work. Prove to us that you know what you have and that you have a plan in place to maintain, to not just
Simple enough.
look away. It's in the ground and then move on. Which the town already has. The sewer department has a regular routine. So it's just about putting it into writing. The biggest thing would be that'll come out of it is maybe a 10 or 20-year plan of what you're going to do each year. Spend a little money each year to do certain upgrades.
But take off on our CWMP.
Yep. So that's included in this scope.
Well, I think, from what I see, this looks very much like what we've seen before. Do you see any point in putting this off until next meeting and let Mr. Bishop see it, or are you comfortable with signing this tonight?
No, I'm comfortable signing it.
Okay. So I think we need something in the form of a motion to accept the agreement for engineering services in between the town of Norton and Western Sampson Engineers, Inc. for the work on what would be West Main Street Sewer Extension Project.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the agreement for engineering services by and between the town of Norton, Mass. and Western Sampson Engineering Incorporated for the West Main Street Sewer Extension Project.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Do you want us to do the header and stuff, or they sign it?
We can take care of that,
You guys
because there'll
want-
be other signatures I think you'll still need to get. It has a place for approval as to form, as well as the accountant's gonna need to sign off.
Okay.
It's all under the appropriation, so actually, if you look at it, I didn't flag the page, so really, we just need the commission's signature on page 18
Thank you.
of the agreement itself. And then at the back, there are the SRF forms that are requirements for the SRF funding.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank is actually authorized to sign those as the superintendent. Everything through the SRF, the sewer commission has voted that the superintendent has authorization to sign.
Okay,
That
so
type of paperwork.
that goes to the back pages.
Yeah, so if the
Can
commission,
I sign it too?
and you have to sign it where
You
it says
can.
Francis.
We
Yes, David. That'll be
Did you
you.
get that one?
I didn't sign it.
All right, it's that
Did I
number
give
18.
them 3? Did I give you 3 copies?
Yeah.
I have it there.
Okay, okay, yep.
You need all 3 signed?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I get a copy emailed to me
Sure,
sometime? Just
sure.
so I have it.
Frank, it's the email that I sent you today.
Yes.
If you can forward that
I will do that.
to Scott. This is you have a PDF of everything that's in front of you. So
Okay,
that's
perfect.
everybody
Thank you.
knows. Yeah, Frank. Just,
Can I read it?
no,
Was
you
it,
don't read it. You wrote it like 20 years ago. We just keep modifying
I
it.
know.
The scope.
So today's gonna be 4th?
Feels like the
Yeah,
24th.
And Frank, I'll leave these with you. I can go over the other signatures. I will say that, so legal counsel, you know, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago,
Right,
they had
Right.
gone through with a fine tooth comb our agreement for construction service. Well, basically not even just construction services, our engineering agreement. So this does include, you know, that question always comes up. Does this include the language that we hashed, you know, that we worked through? And it does. If you
Yeah.
look at it, you know, comparison to the last few that have been signed, all that language is in there, and it's the important words, you know, like responsibility and,
Right,
you
standard
know,
language.
all
Certain
that
things
stuff.
they want that, which is okay.
Yeah, it's
It's-
fine.
it's-
Everyone has their own-
By the way, it's also the same attorney at TP Law or Copeland Page that reviews these all the time. It's Dave Dineski. So it's not like a new person gets it every time.
sure.
It's always Dave, and he knows what the standard is, and it's an easy review for him. As far as the contract language.
Excellent. So what would be the holdups to the Mass DOT permit? Are there,
Just their inability to, they have so many permits that they're trying to push out.
Right.
And
I guess I'm asking if there are anything on our end that we could smooth out,
I think we're doing
Nudge
everything
along.
we can, but I'll let you know.
not a
We
criticism, just a
communicate.
request.
No, I understand, yeah.
I wanna try to be the good,
Yeah.
you know, there's towns who are like, oh, we can't get our act together and it's gonna get kicked to the next year, and I don't think we're there, and there are all these people where I believe we're in the middle. We're not probably their favorite towns, but I think we're somewhere in the middle, and I don't know how to make us look ready.
Yeah, so we've met with them many times. The meeting last week was really just to
Yep.
keep them moving, say, hey,
Good.
we're still here.
Yep,
And as discussed, you know, they're fully aware that we advertised without the permit.
right,
And we put in what have been discussed as the conditions. You know, we know most of the conditions that are gonna be imposed on
Sure.
the permit. It's pretty standard.
yeah,
And then, you know, with regard to the specifics of hours of construction and pavement replacement requirements, we have a pretty good idea, and we went conservative in terms of the quantities, you know, depending on how much full width they make us do.
Right, no, I
So we
understand.
put enough quantity in to cover us
Yeah.
if it goes full width.
no, I just see that as time well spent on your end, if you can prepare the next document or nudge them to
So we
another,
just sent them more
another sit
information
down, right?
yesterday, and
And again, don't take it as criticism, I want to be as, I'll call it squeaky wheel
Yeah.
in their world as
Yeah.
we possibly can, and they're gonna be like, all right, they finally have everything, and
And
we're
these
gonna get
letters,
them going.
you know, every couple of days we send them another one of these letters of support.
Yeah.
So that keeps us in their face too. So they know, you know, they were very accommodating in the meeting in terms of acknowledging that we understand you're out to bid, we know you need a permit before you can award the contract. It seems like the biggest thing is getting the sign off from upstairs for the night work. You know,
On their end.
on their end.
All
Which
right.
again, you know, we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago. It started, the first set of comments we got the first time we submitted it was, you're gonna have to do this work at night.
Well, maybe if,
So it started with them, and now
I know,
they're asking us to
Yeah.
get all these letters of support for
I don't
them.
know if it would help to have Steve Howard. I know he, in a not too recent past, was an excavation contractor. Do you think it would maybe help to have him talk to somebody over there if a state rep was pushing, or it's not time for that type of
I
stuff?
don't think so. I don't think we're there yet. I think the letter from
Steve.
It was from Steve.
Steve
Yeah.
is a good start.
Okay, that'll
Yeah,
be, that'll
if it
be his,
continues, that's a good thing to know.
You
yeah,
know what
if
I
he's-
mean?
If he's
If-
willing to help us with that. I think
either
they're-
him or
they're gonna
Mr.
get us
Barrows, I don't
something.
know
It's
if,
just a matter of-
sometimes a cup of coffee or a little
Yeah.
lunch by one of those guys to the right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Have we notified abutters about the possibility of network? Because there might be some.
So we've had
Kickback, I
a
guess.
stakeholder meeting, we haven't had public outreach within the corridor itself.
I mean,
So it's something that we can do.
And I think the first thing
They're
you
gonna get
do
the
is like
letters.
those forms that go out, a letter basically has to explain, this is what's happening, this is why it's
this
happening.
is why it has to happen.
And
When
here's the
minimize
forms
and
that
for
we
how
need.
long.
Minimize the pain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And think about even from parking during the day, you know, if you're during the day and you're going across and it's going slow, driveways and stuff, where do you park? How do you get back in potentially? You can't park in the street, because you gotta get your car out.
I mean, there would definitely be, once we know we're going forward, there would be a pre-construction
Right.
meeting
Right,
with
that's
those
true.
people to talk
Well,
about
like we said, it's a,
how it's gonna go.
your words, it's a linear project, so they're not gonna be shutting down 400 feet a day. It's gonna be 150 feet, and I mean, I know it seems simplified, but if neighbors could talk to neighbors, and it's literally just maybe, what would be their maximum? 200 feet? They're not gonna do 300 feet a day.
No,
Right.
I think
a
150.
good day will be 100.
Yeah,
probably, based
150 is
on-
probably a
right.
lot, so if they could,
150 is a big day, yeah.
you know, simply walk a little bit
Yeah.
to a car or whatever, or I
Yep.
suppose we could have signboards and whatnot saying the end of the job or the proposed, you know, I should say the end of activity for the day will be here, or,
Between this house and
Yeah.
the house number.
yeah.
Yeah, there's
Goes-
definitely a
goes-
lot of communication that has to go on. so
Goes
we
back to
know
the,
where they're gonna be. Yep,
We had
there'll
a,
be
we had a
message
gas
boards.
station in the 70s, and then when there were allocations of gasoline, we had the last car in line sign, put a sign on the trunk of the last car in line.
Yeah.
If you had a proposed end of the day, and the people could, you know, pre-figure where they want to have their car, because as much planning as we do, they don't know what we're doing right now.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Even your signboards that you put up
Mhm.
for flushing, we could use those as well.
Yeah.
We did
Yeah.
for the town center, yeah. Yep,
Anything we do to make, think about if you're looking at, what would you want?
Right.
Right, just notification.
And now that I say that, some people may not perceive the need to go out from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. You know, when I suppose if people do, then it's maybe we have a central location, I don't know. A guy in a pickup truck could shoot somebody to a car if you can, you know, understand somebody needs to work early or whatever.
And the contract's a little flexible too, as far
Right.
as being able to let people get in and out.
Right.
You know.
A couple of road plates swung around and you
Yeah,
can
case
cross
by
the
case
trench.
basis.
Sure.
You know, they'll see them the night before, they'll know they're coming,
Right. You got it.
right? They don't go backwards, they
Right.
just keep going one direction.
Yes,
so
right.
They'll know.
Super. All right.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay, a couple things, I don't have a lot. One thing, I did finally get in touch with Mark Abrahams.
Oh, the
Mark
rates.
Abrahams is still in Florida, but he's coming back this week.
Still a little chilly back here.
Well, I asked him, I said, "Is it get too hot down there?" And he goes, "No, it's time to go back."
So is he
So
doing it,
he's-
or is his son doing those?
The heavy lifting will be done by Mark.
Okay,
The Matt is the spreadsheet guy,
right.
so he's the plug and play guy. Well, that's probably not a nice way to say it, but that's
It's what it is.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talked about is getting together, maybe within the next 2 weeks with you, to start making sure that we've got everything we need as far as capital stuff on the water, this is drinking water only. And meet with Mark and Matt, so that they've got the future done. And he's looking at the first cut at options, for rates in 4 weeks. Back to you, so.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he's ready to go. I asked him if there's anything else he needs at this point. He goes, other than maybe just making sure we've got all the future work scheduled or plugged in, that's really what we need. He has everything else he needs from the town, from James Paulo, who's he worked with before. So they've got what they need, they're ready to go. Meet in a couple of weeks, after you get a chance to get back, we'll pick a couple of dates. It usually ends up being an hour or two tops, just to make sure, and we'll do it here with you, and probably Rose, and Mark and Matt, and then 2 weeks later, they'll come up with their first cut as far as options for water rates. So that's a good thing. He does know what the goal is about trying to make sure that people know that maybe it's in the fall town meeting.
Right,
That
right.
if there's
You know,
monies that need to
information
be
is-
raised,
right.
if there's a rate increase, various town boards, that they will know what to expect.
Yep.
And if things need to be adjusted within budgets, my sense is usually not a lot of money,
No,
because now you're also only dealing with it for, you know,
but I know what you're touching on, and a budget is a budget.
That's
So,
correct.
absolutely.
Right.
As soon as we get that, we'll
And the timing
kick it
is
around
gonna
and
be,
pass it along.
you know, August, we're looking at clean water being run through the plant, but it's gonna take a while to get the approval of the clean water to be put out in the system. So around that time, a little after October is when, hopefully, when people are gonna start seeing the water from the treatment plant. So the timing is about, you know, the rates and cleaner water, which,
That was the plan, yeah.
That's
So
the plan.
Have it come in same
Right.
time, so.
right. That was that. Couple other things, and this is something you wanna think about. This is a draft of the plaque that will be at the water treatment facility. And usually, well, almost always, the name of the engineer on the job would be on it, the general contractor. The water department superintendent's name would be on it.
Better take that job, Frank.
And the Water and Sewer Commission, it looks like the same people will be here. But oftentimes the Board of Selectmen, or names are on it. And given the fact you've just had a change,
Yes, we did.
then you've got a little bit of a political dynamic here going on to decide who's more appropriate. Is it the ones that are on the board when it opens, or the people maybe there when through the, you know, the trials and tribulations of making this happen? But that's an assignment way higher than my pay grade. So
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah. Cop out.
Thanks, Frank.
it is
Cop
another
out.
expression about,
Yeah, you're just ducking. You're ducking that hatchet flying across the room. I saw you in the scales.
I'll give you another
I'm proud of
analogy.
you.
Hide under the table.
In our business, it flows downhill,
Yep.
so
Yep. No. Hey.
you got it. So start thinking about that.
Right.
that's all.
No, something to consider.
Right, so there's no rush, but my guess is that just start thinking about, you know, who's really appropriate for this. And obviously the town manager's name is on it as well. So, but it's a plaque that's actually mounted on the building. As far as the treatment
Because-
plant itself,
3 squirrels, 4 deer, and the treatment guys will see it.
right, the people there every day and
Right.
and
Yep.
see whose name is up on the big board. As far as the treatment plant goes, I talked to Jimmy today, it sounds like everything's going well. Right now, as far as the dollars spent, they're at 55% as far as billings. So they're making really good progress. They're still saying they're on schedule for the times we've been talking about.
Right.
Late June, really kind of completion, ready to start putting water through it. August, as far as startup. But again, recognize that for a while, you're gonna be running this plant 24/7.
Yep.
And the need to cover the operation of that plant.
So even during the trial phase, when they're doing the testing and everything, they had to run 24/7
24/7.
before they start delivering it to people?
Yep,
Okay,
before it goes out.
right, okay.
So, and that's, the other thing is tied to the other issue we talked about wells and trying to get a well pump in early, so they can actually have something they can run
Right.
and test it. But that's, I'm not sure if that's resolved of when that pump is gonna get delivered. I'm not sure what the timing is
There was a
yet.
small delay that I had found out at one of the meetings for the original well, which is gonna be well 4.
Mhm.
They know there was a backlog on that. They were trying to, you know, work around that schedule.
Right,
I haven't got a hard date as if they know definitely what the delay time was gonna be.
Mhm.
Originally, I believe it was 2 weeks, so
Okay.
that's not too far off.
Yeah, and all the site work is done, other than, so from kind of the road in, or from where the trailers are in, all the site work is done. So
Right.
Maverick is pretty much done, except for the work heading back out to the street. So they're gonna be gone for a while. But everything else is moving right along.
The building's tight, roof tight.
Getting there.
The bricks are going up on the side, or,
Yeah, on the, I guess the main roof, things are in. The shallow roof, not so much,
okay,
but they're closing on that as well.
right,
And I guess the upcoming work is the steel decking on the lower roof is gonna be
Mhm.
done. And wood blocking and sheathing on the roof as well. So things are starting to get closed in,
that's awesome.
yeah. I haven't been there, in fact, I probably should have dropped by there today, but I'll swing by probably tomorrow. Other things that are going on, the water main design is still going on Pine Street, as
Right.
well as homes in East Main. There may be a decision to be made at some point about, with regard to funding, and whether you wanna postpone some of that construction. So it goes maybe a little bit later, so things don't hit all at the same time. Frank, I think you guys feel that East Main and Holmes is higher priority than Pine,
Correct.
and so it would make some sense. It's also the smaller of the two jobs, as far as actual cost goes.
They just
And,
paid that too, last year.
That, yeah,
Two
that
years
was,
ago.
that
They
did
had
have
to
some
pay
work done to it,
subs,
correct.
Pay all up again.
and Reservoir Street, your friends from Gravity will be coming back, Luke, at some
Yeah.
point soon
Excellent.
to finish that work. The master plan is ongoing. We talked a little bit last time about a bit of a delay with the transition here, that probably talking about June, but it really doesn't, it shouldn't affect anything that Mark does. Mark Abraham's on the rate study.
Yeah.
That there's some assumptions we can plug in for going forward.
They're
But
tied
let's-
together, aren't they, a little bit? The rate
A
study
little.
and the master plan, because you had talked to Frank about projects and going
Right.
forward, and then, so you must have an idea what projects they're
So
gonna be.
we know what the initial ones are, the first
Right.
couple of years,
Right.
they're kind of programmed in already.
Right.
The timing might be a little bit flexible.
Sure.
But I think with regard to, after that, the water system improvements, what's typically done is, even if you don't have a exact plan of we're gonna do all this, is plug in a dollar amount that you could potentially afford
Right.
to spend, because let's face it, it's not a
Right.
And it's
bottomless
based on
pit.
priority. At
Yeah,
that point, you make a priority list of the hot ones, the immediate, and then down the
exactly.
line, yeah.
And so that'll help you decide how much you have to spend, really.
If I may for a second, Fran, the Gravity construction reminded me of that, the gate box issue.
Mhm.
Has that kind of subsided?
That has subsided, it has not returned.
Because I've seen in our excavation stuff, the water table is just ultra high
It is.
and
Yeah.
Right,
solidified. It's just
right.
cresting, if you will. So
Yeah,
any indicators now?
Nothing has changed since the initial problem that we had back
Okay.
during the winter.
Maybe fines got in and clogged it up
That
or
is
whatever.
my-
It
my
doesn't seem to be a
assumption.
leak, I guess. is-
Exactly, I do not believe it's a leak. We did a leak detection back
Sure.
during the winter months. We weren't able to determine it was a leak. The balloon was removed from the gate box, the leak
Right.
or potential, leak stopped, believing it was groundwater,
Yeah.
and it just found its natural path back to where it needed to go. It was just
Right.
utilizing the trench as an easier.
Well, hey, no,
access.
you interrupt that much with such a high water table, then the water table says, yeah, we're gonna float here for a while.
Right.
Good, so, no structural requests from Gravity, it's all basically paving.
Correct.
Super, thank you.
And that's all I got.
Very good.
I think, other than any crossover issues from the Concom that you
No?
care to bring out?
Did you ever get back from Columbia?
I did not.
That's strange. I guess it went all right. I haven't heard anything either,
Right.
so.
Yeah, I sent a copy of that letter that was here to Tara.
Okay.
She believed that was just our copy. She just wanted to get
Sure.
a physical look at it, and have heard no response either way.
I'm thinking it must have been boilerplated, I mean,
Yeah, it was-
I'm not gonna say it was parallel permitted, which you would hope had happened, but with the work that we've accomplished in the treatment plant facility and along the areas that are sensitive, they're really much less significant than, the gas is a shallower trench.
And their ruling already was it doesn't need to have a wetland permit.
Right.
So I assume that they would have given that back to,
Yeah, maybe it was just,
so
boilerplate stuff.
they can go ahead now.
Excellent.
There is one more thing, just to think about that project that's going on, maybe in Taunton.
Right,
Yes.
I had a letter
I see what that-
in correspondence I was gonna talk about. They got planning board approval, but not special site plan review approval, so it looks like they're gonna move ahead.
Did the Concom see it?
Nope, it has not gone through Taunton Concom.
They have to approve it.
Yeah,
And just so you know, I did have a conversation first with their engineer
super.
from
Beta.
Beta. And then the same day, later on, I got Tony and Fred
Yep.
were on the line with Beta.
Okay,
And it was made known to them that, yes, there are two pipes in the street.
Good.
One is the 6-inch force main, which is a no-no as far as tying in to. And the other one is the 2-inch low-pressure line that was installed for the sole purpose of serving those properties.
Those
And that
residential
one-
properties.
In that one property. Apparently Tony wasn't aware of that the engineer was for some reason, but neither Tony nor Fred were aware of it. They're aware of it now.
good.
And-
Excellent
And they
work.
know where the tie-in really needs to be. But they did mention, and I guess this is I'm not sure when this is gonna happen, but there's potentially a proposal across the street from this property.
That line stripe in place?
And there apparently is for housing development.
Okay,
There might be, I heard 50 units, I heard 80 units.
okay.
So the
Yeah,
people on the phone.
significantly more than 10.
It's more than 10.
Yeah.
So they know obviously that I believe it's a 2-inch pressure main. So
Right.
the issues, that line was not sized for
Right.
a big development. It was sized for individual homes
Yeah,
along the way.
right,
But that's something to keep in mind, to keep an eye out, to find out what's happening
yeah.
with regard to both of those projects now, as far as what could happen in time.
The letter I sent to Taunton was not met with such open arms. They basically said it's our sewer and we're gonna do what we wanna do. They regulate, or the MOA or whatever the initial agreement was for our Winnicott bordering properties did describe what we could do, but really didn't limit or describe at all what they will do. I think it's only prudent that any engineer would look at the 2-inch low pressure line as the appropriate line to tie into, and let's hope they follow proper engineering practices.
Well, I think you do have some control because that 2-inch line comes back to the Winnicott pump station.
Right,
It's not like it's going from there into
Right.
Taunton. It's coming back through your system.
right,
So my sense is you really do have some control,
yeah,
even though they think they
right,
can do anything they want with it.
Right.
That's not the case.
okay,
You have some control.
excellent. I think, if there's nothing else, I would accept a motion to.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion
But
to
Mark,
adjourn.
we have a next meeting at, I think it would be, this is the
May.
24th, so is it May, maybe May 14th?
We were gonna do Monday the 13th.
That's right.
Right?
The
For
second
some-
Monday?
For some reason,
Town meeting's the Wednesday the 15th.
yeah,
Is there something else on?
What's Tuesday?
Also to buy, so you were gonna invite people to talk about the finance, either the select board and
Okay.
finance committee after the bids are open
okay,
to discuss the strategy for town.
thank you.
So I think
So
that's why.
it looks like 5:13, everybody okay with?
Why not the 14th was the reason?
Well,
I think we wanted to do it so it's not like
you don't want to do it
town
on,
meeting.
you don't want to do it on the Friday the
Yeah.
10th, but
Alright,
you don't want to do it the minute before the meeting.
okay,
So
So
people have time to think about it.
that's fine.
We may need to
I'll
carve
second.
out some time on the
Yeah.
Friday. either
Yeah, no,
first
we
thing in the
can,
morning
we
to
can do that.
talk
I
a
just
little
think the
bit.
formal meeting is, like you said, probably
Monday.
better than Monday.
Yeah.
So I'll second the now motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and we're out.